But yes, Daniel Dubois, Joseph Parker has been rumoured for a long time. It is actually happening. If you want an in-depth look at Nick's experience with both guys involved, you can, once the podcast finished, of course, you can watch the interview, the breakdown. We called it Nick Campbell's breakdown of Dubois Parker on Seconds Out. But just briefly, Nick, tell us about the sparring. We'll start with Parker. Obviously, you worked with him for a lot longer than you did with Dubois. Is the sparring different when you get to know someone more on a personal level? Is it less competitive, more competitive? How does the friendship impact the sparring?
I mean, yeah, you need to be realistic. Yeah, it probably does change the dynamic a bit, but at the end of the day, we're professional athletes, professional sportsmen, and you want to go out there, and it probably adds a little bit of edge. You want to punch your mate in the face when you get a chance to sometimes. So, listen, sparring's not about going out and trying to knock anybody out, but you want to get the best of the work, and you want to push, obviously, each other as well. So, yeah, probably like in terms of want to kill one another, not so much, but want to push one another, like without question, try and push each other as much as we could to the max.
And how does that compare to sparring Dubois, like when you first joined their camp? Because obviously you hadn't sparred him before, as we've talked about a number of times. He's not the biggest talker. He's not the most sociable. How does that compare to kind of, you're all friendly with Joe, then you get in the ring and spar, whereas with Daniel, it's very much separated, not cold necessarily, but certainly no more than professional.
Yeah, listen, completely different. Daniel's kind of mindset is I'm there to work. He walks into the gym, puts his hands out, wrap my hands, please, jumps into the ring, does his warm-up. And as a sparring partner, you just need to be ready for whenever you get called. And when you're in there with him, his mindset is to try and take you out pretty much. That I think that's just when I'm in the ring, my job is to try and beat whoever's in front of me by any means necessary. And that's what he does. So it's definitely a different environment to be in. But listen, it was enjoyable. I loved, working with him and Don as well. Don's a great guy. So it was great to be in that gym in London and working hard and obviously pushing yourself as well. You're in against a world-class fighter. So it was always good to challenge yourself and know that you could mix it with those lads.
Good to hear. Now, I'm just going to go to the chat and then we'll come back and talk a bit more about Dubois and Parker, although there's a question from October Red here that I think we should also field. DB Coupon says, isn't there only one DAZN broadcast that goes out globally? Agree they're all awful. Also, happy belated birthday, Nick. That's good. Luke Fury says, Bellew doesn't do much commentary, but he's usually doing the punditry. I do watch third-party streams, though. Don't worry, Luke. We won't send anyone around your house. Duncan Rogers says, that Pommy talks too much. I am now that Pommy. Give the man a chance to talk. I do plan to, but I'm trying to go to the chat as well. October Red has asked Nick, I would like to hear about the David Adeleye sparring, considering what happened on Saturday. And that was obviously Adeleye getting a first-round win for the English title against Sol Dakers. I was ringside for that. I actually missed the finishing punch. I had to watch it back on social media afterwards because I looked down for a second and it was all over. But yeah, what was the sparring with David Adeleye like, Nick?
Yeah, listen, I'll be honest, I was a bit surprised. I rate both fighters. I didn't see that happening in the first round. But listen, it's heavyweight boxing, so all it takes is one shot, switch off for a second, you could be winning the whole fight, and that's it, game over. But no, listen, it's a shot that he was throwing a lot in sparring. It's obviously a shot that him, Adam Booth, and the coaching team had been working on. It's maybe something that they'd, seen that could work against Sol. So and listen, he can punch. David Adeleye can really fight. So yeah, it didn't surprise me that shot hurt Sol. Maybe even although I was surprised it was stopped in the first. But no, great shot. The sparring was good work. Worked together with him for about a week in Dublin. He came over to spar me and Joe. And like I say, it was a shot he was throwing a lot in sparring. So wasn't surprising to see him get the job finished with that.
Great stuff. Now, getting back to Dubois against Parker, when we did the interview last week, we talked a little bit about different qualities the two have and who's better at different things. I thought it might be a quick way to go through the preview of the fight by going through a few of those categories, especially for people who didn't see the interview. So first of all, the one everyone's going to ask, and I already have asked you once, who hits harder?
Dubois. Yeah, listen, Daniel's a massive puncher. Every single shot as well, there's weight behind it, especially his jab, which I touched on in the interview, is probably his most underrated punch. But no, listen, I'm not saying that Joe doesn't punch hard, he does, trust me. But in terms of pure power, then I would probably have to side with Dubois on that.
Now, I hope the next one you've tested out directly. Who has the better chin?
Do you know what? I would have to call it a draw. I think they both got great chins. I
thought you were saying they're both terrible. I've chinned them both.
No. Listen, I think if you look at Joe's obviously got the one knockout defeat against Joyce, but I think he was exhausted then. I know that there was a few things going on behind the camp. He probably never had the best camp building up to it, and he just looked tired, almost more exhausted than knocked out, if that makes sense. I think Daniel, the 2 times that he's been stopped, one, I think Usyk was just too much for him to get his head round, and he just broke him down. I don't think he was knocked out. And then against Joyce, obviously, he suffered the orbital fracture. So, both get great punch resistance, both tough men. So, I would have to score that a draw.
Who's got the better jab?
Probably Daniel. As like I said, it's probably most of it. I think it's his best punch. Joe probably doesn't need to use his jab as much as Daniel does to get inside and do his work. So I'd need to go with Daniel.
Who has the better footwork?
Yeah, Joe. I think Daniel's actually got very underrated feet. And I think, especially when I was in sparring him, a lot of people say he got caught with loads of right hands against Hergovic. He actually uses his feet really well to get out of trouble. But I do think that Joe is the silkier boxer with higher boxing IQ, and I do think he's more fluid in his movement. And I'd have to go with Joe on that.
Would you say Parker's got the better defense overall, not just footwork, but head movement, upper body movement, and so on?
Yeah, I think that, but Joe's got the better ability to adapt. I don't think Daniel can really adapt his style. His style is his style. Can you stop him doing it? With Joe, he's a bit more versatile. He can mould himself better to a few different styles and pick a game plan that's going to work for him in a fight, as opposed to Daniel's just going to come in, set a high pace, try and bowl you over with shots.
And I'm trying to think of getting the right one before we finish. Boxing IQ.
Joe. Definitely think. Listen, I think they're both world-class fighters. Do you know what I mean? Daniel's a world champion. Joe's a former world champion. So it's probably a bit unfair to say they've not got IQ. Of course they do. But I do think, like I touched on, Joe's much more adaptable. I think Joe can mould himself to a game plan that's going to suit him in a particular fight. And also, I think the work that he's done with Andy in the past 18 months, the fights that he's been in the past 18 months, just give him a little bit of an edge in boxing IQ. If you look at Daniel's wins, they were seek and destroy. There was a tactic, but that tactic was to get in there, smash the guy, move on to the next fight. With Joe, he's had to go in there against Wilder, who's arguably the biggest puncher in the heavyweight division, or was the biggest puncher in the heavyweight division. Zhang, another guy who's arguably one of the best or biggest punchers in the division. So he had to go in with a specific game plan and stick to that game plan, adapt his style, and work on shots and training that were going to work for these specific guys. Daniel just goes in and smashes you. So I'd have to edge with Joe.